Here, in the United Kingdom, we've just lost off the air a brilliant, brilliant broadcaster simply for being too old. Or was he? As ever, let me explain. Hi, good morning. Neil Sean here as ever. Lovely to have your company. Let's have a wave today. Yep. You're all, yes, come on. It's a bit of exercise. Oh, yeah, chat. You, you shattered now. I don't know about you the other day. I was trying to open a tin. Oh, I was using a tin. Oh, yeah, I thought I need to sit down after this. Everything's hard work, isn't it, when you're sort of a bit lethargic coming out of winter? We should be like hedgehogs, shouldn't we? Just hide away and come back from under the hut after months of hibernation. Will we have any energy then? No, what do you mean, no, Neil? Of course. We might have a bit of energy, you never know. I love that thing as well, don't they? Have you seen the poster where it says, take iron, and suddenly the fatigue goes away? Don't know about you, I had a spoonful of iron, fell asleep. But, what are these things? Back as ever, though, to your breaking showbiz story of the day. Rather serious and quite sad, really, because Ken Bruce, one of our most esteemed broadcasters over here in the United Kingdom, did his very final show for BBC Radio 2 over on the BBC last week, and he'd been let go early. He was a little bit sad about that. They cut him loose because he's got a brand new gig with Greatest Hits Radio. And the reason they claimed, the BBC, that they let him go early was because they didn't want necessarily for him to be on air and attracting more of their listeners, which of course he will take with them when he moves to his new show. He'd been at the corporation for over 30 years. He was the highest paid person on BBC Radio 2. He also had the highest audience of every single show. People were dedicated to that particular program, but the BBC didn't care. They wanted to revitalize the program, bring in younger blood. But are they wrong? You see, let me explain both sides of the story. The problem that you have now is Ken at 71, still sprightly, still brilliant, got a fantastic voice, and no way is he slowing down. As I say, he's got a brand new daily show starting very soon. But the problem that the BBC have is what they were saying is, if you think about it, BBC Radio 2 is meant to be for the middle-aged. And the middle-aged people now are people from the 90s, late 80s, and into the early 90s, you see. So they're not playing things like 50s, 60s, and 70s music. That's not for them. That's not BBC Radio 2. Forgetting, of course, that it's funded by the public license fee. But the bottom line for them is they're now bringing presenters in who are in their late 30s, early 40s, you see. And they hope that they could have a 20-year plus career before they're axed, and the same thing will happen again. That's their basic sort of outline as to why Ken had to go. It doesn't make business sense, does it? When you think about it, however much Ken was being paid, which was a considerable amount of money, he was bringing in mega listeners. Over 11 million people every single day were listening to Ken Bruce on the radio. They've let that walk out the door, all in the name of age. What I'd love to ask you and everybody out there is, really, have you been a victim of something like that? Were you removed from your post, and then you found out later on it was something to do with your age? I'll be honest, it's happened to me, whichever way you look at it. You don't know it's that, but then you find out later on that, right, okay, get the picture. But the bottom line is, it's about you to reinvent. It's up to you to come up with something new. But sometimes that's impossible if that's your only revenue stream, or indeed if that's the way that your career is being built, whether you've worked in local council or perhaps in a major retail chain, you know what I mean, something like that. Through no fault of your own, perhaps you're not as mobile as you could be. And as we've said many times here on the show, we seem to be treating the elderly, with all the vast experience that we all have, rather shabbily. So do you agree? Should Ken have been cut loose? Or are BBC bosses mad to let such a major, major talent simply walk out of the door with perhaps another good 15, 20 years of brilliant broadcasting still to come? I'd love to know what you think to this particular story in the comments below.